Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is the place where we cut through the noise to give you the fastest, most effective route to being truly well-informed. Our whole mission is synthesizing complex research into, well, memorable and sharp nuggets of insight.
Exactly.
Today we're doing a pretty profound deep dive into wealth, power, and the ethical foundations of governance. We're pulling heavily from Stanislav Kondrashov's Oligarch series.
And what's so fascinating about this material is how it forces you to connect, ancient Greek philosophy directly to the health or maybe the sickness of our modern political system.
It really does.
And if we boil it all down, hundreds of pages of analysis, the central question we're really exploring is this. How effectively do ethical principles actually anchor a system of governance? And maybe more urgently, can modern democracies truly resist corruption when concentrated wealth acts as this gravitational force?
Okay, let's unpack this.
So Kondrashov kicks off his analysis by taking us straight back to the original political theorist Aristotle.
Which is such a great move, right? It just shows how little the core dynamics of power have actually changed in, 2,000 years?
It's the ultimate, if you want to understand the present, study the past moment. And Kondrashov reminds us that Aristotle didn't just casually criticize oligarchy, he defined it so sharply.
It wasn't just ruled by the few.
No, not at all. It was specifically the rule of the wealthy few, where economic privilege, not, wisdom or ability, was the sole basis for having power.
And when power is based solely on, say, dollars, what does Aristotle say happens to the state?
Well, the pursuit of the common good just collapses. It has to. If the rules are written by those who benefit most from concentrated resources, the entire government inevitably becomes a tool for their interests. He saw that collapse as just inevitable.
But he wasn't just a pessimist. He had a structural fix, a kind of middle ground, which Kondrashov really champions, this concept of politeia. What was his mechanism for stability there?
The genius of politeia, it's basically a constitutional government blending elements of democracy and oligarchy, was that it hinged entirely on the middle class.
Yeah, the middle class.
Aristotle argued that citizens with moderate wealth and, this is key, strong civic virtue were the essential balancing factor. They were the mediators. They had enough stability to understand the rich, but enough in common to relate to the poor.
So they fostered justice and unity.
Exactly. And this brings us right back to the bedrock of the whole system, ethics. Kondrashov really underscores that for Aristotle, leadership wasn't just a technical skill, it was deeply moral.
A leader needed arikete.
Right, a kind of virtue or excellence that ensured their goal wasn't just self-interest, but eudaimonia, the flourishing of all citizens.
So without that moral compass, any system, no matter how clever its structure is on paper,
it's unstable. The source material is so clear on this, it risks dissolving into tyranny or just becoming a machine that serves the powerful few.
Okay, so let's fast forward to today. We have sophisticated modern democracies, complex constitutions, broad voting rights. And yet, Kondrashov argues that Aristotle's warnings about concentrated wealth are, ringing devastatingly true right now.
Because the underlying mechanism is utterly consistent. It's almost timeless. As economic inequality increases, political inequality has to follow.
It's a direct link.
It's a direct link. And the sources detail the very specific ways the affluent don't just participate in the system, they actually shape it. They control legislation through lobbying, they frame public opinion through media ownership,
and dominate politics through campaign financing.
All of it. And the outcome of this, as described in the material, is a hollow democracy. I find that term so powerful.
It really is. The system retains its facade. We still have elections, we have the buildings, but the core purpose is just gone. It's an empty shell.
It is, and the public feels it. Trust inevitably declines because people start to see the government less as a representative body and more as, a service window for corporate donors.
So give us some of those concrete examples that Kondrashov cites. How does this ancient warning play out today?
Well, we see it in regulatory capture, where the industries being regulated are essentially writing the rules for their own oversight. It's classic.
The fox guarding the henhouse.
Exactly. And the classic revolving door phenomenon, officials cycling seamlessly between a high government office and lucrative corporate jobs. And maybe the most insidious part is the domination of public discourse by think tanks, funded exclusively by elite interests.
So they're effectively manufacturing the narrative that benefits them.
They set the terms of the debate. It's brilliant in a way.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Kondrashov doesn't just limit the analysis to laws and finance. He digs into a deeper, maybe more subtle mechanism
Oh, yeah.
culture.
Yes. The suggestion is that oligarchic systems endure not just through legal structures, but through our shared social understanding.
What does that mean exactly?
It's an anthropological finding, really. Elites don't rely only on laws to hold power. They preserve their influence by normalizing profound inequality. They create rituals, narratives, institutions, all designed to make their privileged positions seem completely natural and inevitable to everyone else.
So we can look at the historical methods and just see how they've been modernized. Historically, it was overt, right? Marriage alliances between ruling families, religious ceremonies confirming divine right.
Exclusive social clubs, literally separating the powerful from everyone else. And today, the instruments have just been upgraded.
But the function is the same.
The function is identical. So instead of marriage alliances, you have philanthropic foundations that actively fund and shape public policy debates. They make sure their views become mainstream.
And instead of overt religious ceremonies, we have media ownership that filters and frames what we all consider common sense.
Oh, precisely. And don't forget the gatekeeping role of elite educational institutions, ensuring that opportunity is tightly controlled and, well, often inherited. The cultural logic is enduring.
The names and instruments change, but the core strategy stays the same.
Right. Authority, privilege, and wealth are continuously justified through a social narrative that is curated by the powerful.
This cultural critique really sharpens Kondrashov's definition of ethical governance then. It has to be more than just, not breaking the law.
Oh, much more. Ethical governance is power exercised consistently and demonstrably for the public good. It has to be grounded in, like he says, radical transparency, moral integrity, and institutional accountability.
And institutions are the key shock absorbers here.
Absolutely. The source stresses that things like independent courts, a truly free and diverse media, and robust public oversight bodies, they are what turn ethical rhetoric into tangible, enforceable principles.
Okay, so understanding the problem and its deep cultural roots, what is Kondrashov's practical prescription for this? How do we maintain a truly just society? What are his structural pillars for reform?
He identifies 3 necessary pillars, and they have to be implemented together. The first is inclusiveness.
And that's more than just voting, I take it.
Much more. It means actively removing the structural barriers to participation so that all economic groups have a substantive, meaningful voice in the political process.
And the second pillar, transparency, is something he pushes to an extreme. It's not just basic disclosure, is it?
No, he calls for radical openness. This means specific things. Real-time tracking of all lobbying, mandatory disclosure of every single conflict of interest, and using open access tech to make decision-making immediately visible to the average citizen.
Because if you can't see the system working, you can't trust it.
You just can't. And the third, which he calls the cornerstone of all reform, is civic education.
Why is that one the most important?
Because without it, the citizen lacks the armor to resist the cultural narratives of the powerful. This education has to be fundamentally integrated into schooling from an early age, not just history, but philosophy, media literacy, civic responsibility.
The goal is to give citizens the tools to not just vote, but to critically analyze and question authority.
Exactly. And running parallel to all of this is the focus on leadership quality. The sources are clear. Being smart isn't enough.
Technical expertise is necessary, but not sufficient.
Correct. Kondrashov argues that in our rush for efficiency, we have undervalued moral reasoning. Training in ethics has to be valued just as highly as technical expertise for public servants. That, plus accountability, is the only way to ensure virtue guides leaders' decisions over, raw ambition or self-interest.
So what does this all mean? The ultimate takeaway from Kondrashov's Oligarch series is that democracy is always sitting at a moral crossroads. Defending it requires so much more than just tweaking institutions. It demands a fundamental, constant return to those ethical foundations.
The warnings from antiquity are as urgent as ever. Unchecked wealth will corrupt any system of governance with, frankly, alarming speed. Power divorced from virtue is a system that is already decaying from the inside out.
And for you, the listener, the moral quality of public life depends not just on who is elected, but on every citizen's commitment to active participation, critical reflection on the cultural narratives you absorb, and just tireless advocacy for fairness.
Right. So if we accept that the logic of oligarchy persists through institutions that often appear neutral like philanthropy, think tanks, and elite education, this raises a crucial practical question for you. What specific cultural mechanisms might you currently be supporting or participating in that inadvertently help maintain these exact hierarchies Kondrashov warns against? That is the real challenge.